Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN, the Hub's fantasy football strategy show. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm here as always with Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinbold and Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and we're excited to talk wide receivers with you guys because that's the most important position I feel in fantasy football or wide receivers. If you have strong wide receivers, you have a strong chance of winning your league. What are your thoughts?
Well, I will say this. I mean, wide receivers to me have become much more important than running backs in the last probably 5 to 7 years at least. It's a very different landscape with running backs. I still think it's hard to say. I mean, look, quarterbacks are not as important in a one quarterback league, but if you play in Superflex, you can easily argue that quarterback is still the most important position. But I think wide receiver is more important than running back in many ways.
Certainly over the past several years, as the trend has been to the PPR or half point PPR leagues. If it's not a PPR league of any kind, then you have to balance it out a little bit with running backs, because the way running backs gain value is with their accumulation, but they don't catch a lot of passes. So
yeah, and let's also say we're not saying running backs are worthless. We are just saying that the balance of wide receiver versus running back
Ross
is
worthless.
Okay, you said that, Ross. I'll be your therapist for that later.
Anyway, no, what I was just mentioning is that if you have a strong wide receiving core, I think it gives you a big advantage against your opponent compared to having a strong quarterback, because I feel there's 12 strong quarterbacks at least. And
sure.
Running back position is so volatile this year, especially because I have no idea some guys will get hurt and some guys will be benched. So we got to see what happens.
Well, and listen, it was even true back in the day where the running back strategy in the first round was the case. One of the reasons for that was the volatility of running back. I think people just got wise to it that it doesn't pay off to do that.
I mean, I was going Bam Morris, then Terrell Davis.
Well, and also you have to remember, over the last 10 years, throwing the football in the NFL has gotten a lot easier with the new rules around defensive holding and pass interference, and you can't hit a guy when he's crossing over running that.
It's almost impossible to play defense now.
Yeah, Ronnie Lott would not have succeeded in today's NFL.
No. Tatum would not be successful in today's game. No.
So, we're going to talk about wide receivers for fantasy football. We're doing running backs next week. But, it really is the case that you're probably not going to be able to find a top-tier wide receiver like off of the waiver wire. And in running backs, you will. There will be a couple that you'll scoop up, and they'll be different makers.
Yeah, Kyren Williams was probably off the waiver wire last year, and a few years before that, remember James Robinson from Jacksonville, who suddenly became a running back one for a year. So, yeah, you're more likely to find that than a Puka Nacua. That only comes around once every many years.
Yeah, I mean, Nacua is the only one I can even think of that really did that. That show even the highly touted rookies, which we're going to talk about them. They often don't deliver, at least not in the first half of the season. That's one thing that I say to look out for is with rookie wide receivers. It's not that they don't have value, but they're going to have a lot more value as the season goes on. So I would rather let somebody else draft them and then trade for them around week 5 when they haven't done much. So let's get into the tiers. As we often talk about, we develop our list based on these tiers, which put players in a similar level category. Now I have 5 in my top tier. But I do have preferences. There are 2 that I like a lot more than the others. But we'll get into that in a second. How many do you guys have in your top tier wide receivers? Ross, we'll start with you.
I have 6. I have 6 in my top tier wide receivers. That these top 6 will probably go in the first round or late or probably early second round. But 6 is my number. Casey, what's yours?
I actually have 7 because I believe there's going to be 7 wide receivers going in that first round.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying that I don't think 7 wide receivers are going to go in the round. I think they will, but I don't rate 2 as highly as the others.
Well, Dan, first round, if you're a first round pick, you're top tier. I mean,
no. What I'm saying, here's what I'm saying. I do think they're going to go in the first round, but I wouldn't pick them in the first round. That's a big difference. Okay. To me, they're second round picks, but I know that's probably not the way it's going to go. So, do both of you have CeeDee Lamb at the top of your list? I do.
I'm worried just because the negotiations for his contract, he's not at camp. So when a player doesn't go to camp and he comes to camp, like this is the last week of preseason Casey Scheinfold. So this is it. I mean, he hasn't been in camp for 4 weeks. He's not in shape. He's not Casey Scheinfold right now. He's not in shape at
No,
all.
he's not.
So he's not.
I'm a
That's
very
what-
unique shape.
So you guys remember like when these guys hold out and then they come back? I'll say it. I know it's bad luck to say it, but they always get injured. Okay, that's all I got to tell you. I'm worried about CD Lamb. I don't
he's
want
not
to
in
pick him
shape.
first. That's not in shape, but he hasn't been in camp, and I'm worried about the injury factor. Signing that big deal, not being in camp. There's so many examples I can tell you, guys that have done that down, the past few years that didn't go to camp because of negotiations, and they show up to camp with a week left of preseason, and they're way behind.
So tell me, where do you have him ranked?
I don't have him one. I have him top tier just because the name alone and in his stats from last year, I'll have him there, but he's lower in the top tier. That's where I have him, lower in the top tier.
What about you?
I still have him number 2 overall, and the reason I don't have him 1 is because of the contract status. I think, excuse me, if he signs his contract this weekend or early next week, I'm going to put him back at number 1. He already has the chemistry with his quarterback. He got over 100, and he got like 180 targets last year. They didn't bring anybody. They didn't bring anybody in to compete with him for that target share, and so I agree when it comes to running backs. Like you think of Le'Veon Bell when he held out, how his career was torpedoed after that. I don't feel the same way about Jamar Chase and CD Lamb. I think as long as they sign before the season begins, I still want them as one or two, because one through 4, because I have Jamar Chase at number 4. But because even if they're not ready week 1 to be the number 1 wide receiver, by week 2 or 3, they're going to be up to speed. And in 15 games, they can do what almost anybody else can do in 17 games. So I haven't dinged him much past number 1. I have Tyreek Hill number 1. I'm sure you guys have him 2 or 3. But the guy led the league. He led the league in receiving yards last year and touchdowns, I think, and his quarterback led the league in passing yards. So that offense is a perfect fit for the Cheetah, and I just think he's safer at this point. I'd have CD above him if CD Lamb was signed.
Okay, and
Casey, I love your pick of Tyreek Hill. I have him too as number 1, just because of all the kids he has. He has to keep making money. He has to pay those bills. His house caught on fire last year, and he has to pay that off. Casey, he has a lot of bills to pay, and he'll be providing that.
A lot of mouths to
feed. A lot of mouths to feed, and he has all these kids with different moms. It's kind of I'm not saying anything bad about the guy, but he has to produce on the field. He has to pay a lot of stuff.
Well,
off.
he can.
He's already producing,
and
he's reproducing.
I like him a lot. I think he's the number 1 wide receiver right now in fantasy football.
All right, and listen,
1.
To me, it's CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill are the 1 and 2 very clearly for me. It's not even close. I mean, when I say not even close, though, I still think there are guys in their tier. They just have either some risk or maybe a lower ceiling. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, I have him in the top tier. I have him 4. I have Jamar Chase 3, and I have Justin Jefferson 5th, which that's a very unfamiliar territory. But who's throwing the ball to him, and what's that offense going to look like?
Baby. Sam Darnold, that's the best combination in football. Darnold to Jefferson. Don't you know it? I'm just kidding. I mean, that's the problem with Jefferson.
When he came back from his injury last year, he finished in the top 5 receivers, I think, each week at the end of the season with who the heck was throwing to him.
Notice, I didn't put him past 5th, but I
actually have him 6th.
Okay, there you go.
I'm with Case. I have him 6 or 7. I really dropped him just because of the whole quarterback situation in Minnesota.
Okay, so we're all dropping him pretty low because
go ahead.
Well, he was the number 1 receiver.
I will be really happy if I have the 6th or 7th pick in a PPR league and I come away with that with Justin Jefferson.
Oh, this is the place where you can find discounts.
Like I'd rather not have a top 2 or 3 pick this year.
Wow.
Well, I'd almost rather have the second. I'd rather have the latter half of the draft where you get the swing pick on the other way back. I'd rather have like pick 8 and 15 instead of 2 and 23 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right. So I've already listed my top tier, but Ross has 1 more, and Case, you have 2 more. So
I do.
Who did?
Go ahead, Ross.
Okay, so my number 2 wide receiver. Again, against the grain. You got to go and pick some players that people don't have that high, and you have them higher, and that's how you win the league. I have St. Brown as number 2. I just feel that offense is going to be high potent.
He's great.
They have a running game, and they have good receivers on that team. And I said it, Goff is going to be MVP this year, and I love St. Brown, so I have him number 2. And this guy is just ready to just pop to have a huge year. So I love St. Brown. 3, I'll take my homeboy Chase. I know he wants more money, but he'll produce on the field. Burrow is excited to have his health and his offensive line back, and I think Chase will benefit from it. Higgins is back, and if Higgins is playing and Chase are playing together, I think Chase will be a huge weapon. And, I like Nakua for the Rams. I mean, he had a monster year last year. In fantasy, I think he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver. And you heard it from me. You can quote me on that. Top 5 receiver, Nakua. Ross the Boss said it now. And I'll stand by that through the whole season. He'll have a better year than Garrett Wilson. He'll have a better year than Samuel. He'll have a better year than Jefferson. How about that? Better year than Jefferson. Take that, Dr. Dan Ratner. Nakua. There you go.
Listen, I don't have him ranked much below. The only reason I have Nakua at 8. And the reason I have him at 8.
Casey's just biting his lip. Look at him. He's just biting his lip.
We'll get to you in a second. But the reason I have Nakua a little bit lower is that Cooper Kupp is back. And so I just I don't know what's going to happen there. I like Cooper Kupp also a lot. I have him at 11. 8 and 11. That's 2 receivers in the top 11. That's good stuff. Case, let's go to you. Then we'll get a comment from Chris Atwater.
Okay. The guys that I have that Ross mentioned one of them, but he doesn't like him. I have AJ Brown at number 6.
I have him at 6 also, but a tier below.
But I have that in the first tier. He's still an alpha wide receiver who demands the ball. And so to me, he's one of the anchors you want on your roster to build your wide receivers around. And I have Garrett Wilson number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Because I believe if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I believe he's going to make Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams-esque back from the Green Bay days. And so not Green Day, although Dookie was a great album. I actually have Puka Nacua like you do in that second tier for the same reason. I worry about Cooper Kupp because Puka kind of found his niche when Kupp was injured, and that's how they developed that chemistry. Cooper Kupp's coming in healthy from what I've read so far. And I just think it's part of the reason I like Matt Stafford as a sleeper, as a quarterback too, in a lot of Superflex redraft leagues. Because I mean, if he has those 2 to throw the ball to, he could have 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. But I have Puka down 1 more tier.
So I have AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson 6 and 7 also. I just have them in a separate tier, and they're kind of their own tier. And now that I look at it, I mean, it's hard to keep Puka Nacua out of that same tier, but I like AJ Brown significantly better than the others. So it's kind of funny that I left him out of the first tier because I like him a lot better than those others. In fact, Garrett Wilson, I have down as one of my busts. And I'm not saying that he will be that, but the fact is, you said if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. I mean, we're talking about a 40-year-old, I don't even know how old he is now, quarterback, coming back from Achilles surgery. Well, there's that also. But, there's a lot of ifs there. And meanwhile, there's no guarantee that they're going to develop that kind of chemistry anyway. Garrett Wilson has really underperformed, and I was very high on him coming in, but I don't trust the Jets. I mean, I could see Garrett Wilson. Let's see. I could see a guy like Drake London. I could see potentially outperforming.
Well, I have him in tier 2. So.
Okay, but I'm just saying that, there's a lot of risk there with Garrett Wilson. Okay, let's take some comments from Chris Atwater. Chris says Matt Corral will unseat Darnold after a few weeks. What say you guys?
He's such an SEC homer. Atwater,
he loves
Corral. Where do you go to Mississippi? Where do you go, Casey?
Mississippi or Mississippi State? I forget which one.
One of those 2. That could happen. Matt Corral looks really good in preseason. I've been watching this kid. He has confidence and he's whipping the ball.
Ole Miss. He's an Ole Miss.
And Sam Darnold has been unseated many times.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a big Donald guy.
Look,
even though
I'm not investing in either quarterback. I just want somebody to throw the ball in Justin Jefferson's direction. It could be Dan for all I care.
But if you get Justin Jefferson, I'd rather have Matt Corral throwing him than Darnold.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. This is $1 million question. Are you ready? Where do you have Marvin Harrison Jr. in your tiers? Dr. Dan Ratner, you go.
He's going to be. I think I will have him the lowest of the 3 of us.
I have him tier 2, number 9 overall.
Wow. Okay. I have him in tier 6 number 29th
So
overall.
if you get him, you should probably look to me to give you a good deal.
Yeah.
Let's look at this one.
That's really
29.
interesting.
This guy's like a phenom. He's like the most touted wide receiver
Okay,
in
but
like this rookie class. What do you do? What are you doing? Seriously.
I'll read you some names about why I think that. I mean, take a look at a guy like Drake London. I mean, Drake London has been
He plays for
complete
Atlanta.
garbage.
This guy's plays for Arizona. They have nobody else to throw the ball to. It's
Okay. How about
volume.
Chris Olave? Chris Olave.
I have them all in the same tier.
Well,
but-
I understand, but what I'm saying is these rookie guys, they just don't come in that well. They just don't. They often don't. We're gonna see. We're gonna see who is right.
Of course, you can ask a trade question. We got off topic. I want you to ask away. We'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, I also love the name.
Marvin Harrison.
Here it is.
Yours hilarious. Okay, what is
Go
it?
ahead, Dan. You bring it up.
All right, here it is. I got offered Christian Kirk, Kyle Pitts, Zach Moss for my Jackson Smith Njigba, Tank Dell, and Pollard. I would turn that down immediately.
I don't know if I would.
It's like I got offered Pitts, who I think is a top 5 tight end this year. Let me just say this to you guys. Christian Kirk has a crowded wide receiver. He's in a crowded spot there in Jacksonville. Pitts, I like a lot. Zach Moss will share the ball. Zach Moss will share the ball a lot with Brown in Cincinnati. Then we turn to Njigba. We like him, the Ohio State kid, but another crowded place in Seattle. I love Tank Dell and I love Pollard.
You'd be giving up JSN, Tank Dell, and Pollard. Okay, no, I wouldn't trade those three for
I love Tank Dell.
Kirk, Kyle Pitts, and Zach Moss. I was reading it the other way. That's why I disagree with you. I'm like, wait, no, I want Jackson Smith, Njigba, Tank Dell. And,
I would keep Tank Dell.
I like Schultz too as a sleeper. I mean, in Houston, that's a good place to be the tight end because that wide receiver core is going to pull everybody towards.
I think Schultz is going to have a lot of and listen, I do think Kyle Pitts is going to do a lot better with Kirk Cousins. I think he is, but is it worth that trade? Not to me.
Not to me, no.
Not me either. Not me either. Me either.
You're taking a major downgrade from Tank Dell to Christian Kirk. Don't do that.
Yeah, and there's some other tight ends out there that are.
And Pollard, I think Ross and I talked about this on Tuesday. I think Pollard is due for a rebound because he's in a much better situation now in Tennessee. He's got a great offensive line, an aggressive coach.
I even think being out of Dallas helps him. The expectations in Dallas don't help certain players. So it's another way Pollard is probably undervalued. Fluff Genie agrees with us. So we're all on board. Reject that trade right away.
Okay. So we ended with you saying Marvin Harris is a 6th tier, which is insane. But I mean, this guy's going to be
Dan, here's my argument for you. Okay. Why I think he's not tier 6, because when you are drafting to win a championship, weeks 10 through 17 matter the most.
Okay, now that's a great argument.
So you're right. The first half of the season, he might not be tier 2, but I am willing to bet that by the end of the season, he is.
Okay.
And that's when the playoffs are, and that's when the games really start to count. You can limp into the playoffs going 0-3 in the first 3 games of the season if you swing and miss on a wide receiver.
Okay. That's a really valid argument. I'm totally with you on that. I mean, you got to remember these rankings are overall rankings.
Yeah.
As the season goes on, he's going to climb up
everything. Guys, we can't agree with everything we say.
No, look, and it's some of the fun. I am betting that Marvin Harrison Jr. and his overall rankings will not crack the top 20 wide receivers. Just by numbers.
Write that down, will you? He won't crack the top 20 wide receivers.
I don't have him. I have him right around 10. So I think he'll be somewhere in that 10 to 12 range by the end of the season.
Right.
Now, by the end of the season, he could be. 11. By the end of the season, he could be a top 15 wide receiver by the end. But I don't.
But that's what you take in the 2nd or 3rd round.
I'm not even saying it's a bad choice. I'm just saying we all have to choose how we value.
So my tier 2 at the top of tier 2 for me is Puka Nacua. Again, I worry a little about Cooper Kupp taking some targets away from him. That's why I didn't put him in 1, because I don't like a wide receiving room where there's 2 alphas in the same room who are going to demand targets or be a target hog. I have Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, and Drake London. Chris Olave, I don't love Derek Carr, the king of the dump off, but he's just too talented of a wide receiver to not put up, to not get targets. And Drake London, Kirk Cousin made Justin Jefferson the best receiver in football. Drake London is huge and a great contested catch guy. I just think Kirk Cousin is going to have a field day thrown to him. So that's why I put him in tier 2.
Okay, then can I give my tier 2 now? Because you
Please
totally
do,
missed.
but first, Chris Atwater says he likes your Nakua pick, Ross, and he says
he
bold, but
does.
probably true.
Yeah, I mean, guys, we're playing fantasy, not guys that will be out there throwing the football to. This is fantasy football. I love he's the number 1 receiver in Houston. I know they got Diggs. I know they got other weapons there in Dell. I still love Nico Collins. I think he's 1,200 yards receiving. I think he's 10 touchdowns. I love Nico Collins. You're a fool not to take him in the second tier. I love him a lot. And I also, I love Waddle. Casey, do the Waddle dance for me real quick, please. Casey, there you go. There's the Waddle dance. Mike Evans from Tampa Bay. Every season this guy's played, 1,000 yards receiving. Every season. That's like a record. This Texas A&M receiver is unbelievable. I love Mayfield. So does Casey. We think Mayfield's the real thing. I know he's not worth much in fantasy.
Don't leave me out. I like
Mike
Mayfield.
Evans,
Dan's been a Mayfield guy from the beginning.
That's right. When he left, you cried when he left Cleveland. I forgot about that.
I did not cry, but that's okay.
You thought he got a raw deal.
I'm even okay with crying. I'm just being.
And you kept on visiting the stadium, thinking he was like living there. That was. I know.
I brought food, and he just wasn't even.
Brought food and Brandon. I know Brandon Ayuk. I know we're tired of his name. People were talking about him being traded. I think he's staying in San Francisco. I don't think he's going anywhere. But I think in San Francisco, he's their weapon. He's their long pass guy. He'll have 1,200-1,300 yards. I love Ayuk, and I love the college he went to. Casey, remind me, where did he go to school? I forgot.
Wildcats, University of Arizona.
No, he went to Arizona State.
You knew that was coming.
You lost again.
All right, now
my question was this. Let me ask you a question. This guy's a Hall of Famer. And I know he's on a horrible team, but Minshew was just named the starting quarterback there.
Mm-hmm.
Davante Adams, where's he going to draft?
Look,
Second
you and
round,
Chris
third
Atwater
round?
are on the same page. Where is Davante Adams for you guys? Yes.
I mean, guys, I just saw that, and we think the same.
So,
me and Chris Atwater are the
for
same
me,
minds here.
For me, Davante Adams, he has a lot of risk and a huge amount of upside. So he's one of the hardest players to evaluate for me. Yeah. And as a result, I put him at 20. He could easily be in the top 5. He could be 35.
Yep.
You don't know what's coming with him, so I averaged it out and I put him at 20. He's hard to predict. But of the guys you said, Ross, I have Nico Collins at 9. I have Mike Evans at 12. I have Brandon Ayuk at 13. I have Jalen Waddle at 15. So I like a lot of the guys that you liked. I'm huge on Nico Collins. And I would much rather have Nico Collins than Garrett Wilson. I'd rather have Nico Collins in the second round than Garrett Wilson in the first. Easily.
Same page. I'd rather have him than maybe Jefferson. I mean, I'm dropping Jefferson a lot. I don't see him being a top tier guy this season. I really don't with Sam Darnold. I don't think you guys get like Sam Darnold ruins people's careers. This guy is not going to make him relevant. So he,
fair.
I'm worried about that. And Davante Adams, did you guys watch that Netflix show Receivers? They follow like 5 receivers around. Davante Adams.
Get to see it.
You should watch it. It's on Netflix. Davante is one of the receivers that's on it, and he is like they have him mic'd up during the game, and he's saying some bad stuff about the quarterback that last year, not this year.
Right, but the thing
the reason I'm saying this, he gets very frustrated as soon as he doesn't get the ball or he's not involved in the offense. He shuts down.
Yeah,
that's the only thing about Davante Adams.
I have Davante Adams in the 3rd tier, but I also have him as a bust. I mean, he's one of my busts. But the reason I have him in the 3rd tier is Gardner Minshew was just named the starter. Now, is Gardner Minshew a quality starting quarterback in the NFL? Probably not. He's a really good backup and a low-end starter. But he also made Michael Pittman a very good receiver last year when he took over for Anthony Richardson. Why can't he do the same with Davante Adams? I don't understand that. So Davante Adams has proven that he's going to be a target magnet and he can get contested catches and get behind the defense. I still think he's a 1,000-yard receiver. He might only be 6 or 7 touchdowns and not double digits like he has in the past. But he's still in my top 15 or 16 wide receivers. If I got him as my wide receiver 2, I'm incredibly happy.
Well, let's say this. I think we all would be incredibly happy now, but from what Ross is saying, you might not be incredibly happy 6 weeks in, and that happens a lot. You think you've got a great pick and makes a lot of sense at the time, and then it doesn't work out.
Sure.
It certainly can happen. He just has a lot of risk. But I mean, I have Tank Dell ranked just below him. And actually, when I think about it, I would really rather have Tank Dell. You're getting really good value there. So I have him at 20, but he's all over the map for me. Party Marty, he's got a lot of Dolphins for us. He says, winners this year for damn sure. I love the certainty. Spoken like a true Ottawa Senators fan.
The thing about the Dolphins is this: they're great against bad teams. I mean, they'll beat the bad teams in the division. They'll win. They'll beat the bad teams. They always lose against the good teams.
They're going to have to show they can win the big games.
Yeah, I don't trust the Dolphins at all this year. They're great against. They'll blow out some bad teams, but good teams, I don't think so.
All right, so Michael Pittman Jr., Chris Atwater says, believe in him or not. Case, let's start with you.
Yes, but cautiously, because of Anthony Richardson. Like we talk about, Anthony Richardson could be the number 1 fantasy quarterback at the end of the year, or he could be not even in the top 40, depending on anything that goes wrong. He only has 17 starts post high school in his career.
Wow, that is a stat.
And he's going against NFL defenses, which are confusing and complicated and complex. If Michael Pittman is his first read every time, Michael Pittman could have a very good year. But I have a feeling Anthony Richardson's going to go to his first read. If it's not there, more often than not, he's going to take off and run, because that's just what he does, and he does it very well. So I believe in Michael Pittman because I do believe he's a top 30, 25 wide receiver, but I don't trust Anthony Richardson yet. So I can't say I believe in Michael Pittman's fantasy value. I believe in him as a receiver.
Ross, what about you?
I'm worried. I mean, this guy is a big dude, but he's going against bigger dudes, and these linebackers hit hard.
Anthony Richardson.
You're talking about Anthony Richardson? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about him getting hurt again, and I hate bringing it up because I don't want anybody to get hurt. But this guy, I don't think he understands, or if he does understand, he still risks his body every game. And I think if he does like he did last year, he's going to get hurt. I mean, there's no way he can take hits like that throughout the season. There's no way. There's no way.
I'm just going to make one counterpoint here, which is Michael Pittman has put up value even when Anthony Richardson wasn't there. So I actually think that Michael Pittman is a great floor pick, but I agree with Casey about the valuation. I have him ranked 27th. I think he's just outside the top 25. He's not super inspiring, but look at this. Trent Reznor fan, like it. A Cleveland guy. I'd never been disappointed drafting Pittman. He is a guy who is really underrated.
Yeah, he's reliable. He's steady. You don't want him as your wide receiver 1.
I think you want him as your wide receiver 3.
2 or 3. 2, you can get away with him. 3, you'll be ecstatic.
That's what I mean. If you can get him at 3, wide receiver 3, that's fantastic. That's exactly the kind of wide receiver you want.
From what I've been seeing, he's going in PPR leagues. He's going in that 5th or 6th round. So if you draft aggressively with wide receivers, you can get him as wide receiver 3.
I mean, I think Michael Pittman Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to end up with very similar stats this season. But I
trust Kyler Murray a lot more than I trust Anthony Richardson.
I do too. But it's the rookie factor. I mean, but you know what I think about this.
I'll tell you one thing: if Anthony Richardson plays the whole season, he'll have over 1,000 yards. I mean, this guy's going to rushing. He'll break records. He'll have more yards than Michael Vick rushing, and it's just about him. It's a health factor. I mean, physically, he has everything. I mean, everything, and he's a smart kid too. He knows how to read defenses. It's just when he scrambles and he gets hit, it's not good. I'm just telling you, you can't do that in the NFL.
I mean, we're all worried about Anthony Richardson being able to get through the year, and that does bring down Pittman's value if he's not there. I just think he also still does have value even if he's not there.
Casey, who's the backup for the Colts now? It's not Minshew. He's obviously because he's with the Raiders, but who's the?
I don't know. I'll look it up.
I think it's Joe Flacco. Did they bring in Flacco?
Yes, I believe you're right.
And he can put up some good numbers for a little while, but until people start to read Flacco.
All
right, now Chris Atwater says, I don't want to hear y'all. Okay, well, we won't talk about Carr if that's okay. He's a Saints fan, been suffering through that.
I like Ratner. I like Ratner's backup they got. I like that kid who played for Maryland last year. Is that who he was with, Casey, last year, or South Carolina? Ratner.
I was going to say the last year for Maryland was Tua Tagovailoa's younger brother.
Right. So Spencer Ratner. He was with Oklahoma State.
Rattler. I was like, Ross, are you talking about my backup?
Think about a rattlesnake. Rattler.
Yeah, Rattler's not a bad pick. But when you were saying my backup, I was like, isn't Casey my backup?
On Tuesdays, we always mention your name.
Step into my role.
We always put you on a pedestal, and we always mention your name in a good way. Like, there's only two guys that can do that, Dr. Dan Ratner.
Yeah, we always use you as the. If Dan was running behind that offensive line, he'd have 250 yards a game. That sort of stuff.
I got to start tuning into our own show to hear this.
On a pedestal. Well, nice to you. Yeah, you should.
Nice.
Okay, right, so where we at?
Well, first we have a comment coming in. I think this is a follow-up on Michael Pittman. Redraft PPR, yes, not enough ceiling for BB. Do you guys know what BB is in this situation?
Best ball.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Michael Pittman doesn't have a lot of ceiling. If I'm choosing between Michael Pittman Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr., even
no doubt, yeah,
obviously going to go there.
I mean, Pittman's 60 yards a game and maybe a touchdown. He's not going to break 100 that much.
All right, Chris Atwater says, crap QB situation, but what about Pickens? Gosh, I hate Russell Wilson unless he has an amazing O-line, running back, receivers, and a dominant defense. So you liked him with Seattle. I know you've never been a Russell Wilson fan because
first of all, it's not going to be Russell Wilson's not going to be the starting quarterback, is he?
He's going to start the season, I think, is the one. But I think we all agree that Justin Fields will eventually have the job. But I think actually, in some ways, both of those quarterbacks are good for Pickens. I don't get me wrong. We have to remember that it's going to be death of a salesman in Pittsburgh because of I keep wanting to say Arthur Miller now, but
he wrote Death of a Salesman.
I know, but now I'm forgetting who the actual offensive coordinator is. The coach last year.
Is this sound obnoxious? Hold on, me too.
I caught it, Ross. I knew what you were doing.
If you remember.
You're looking up who Arthur Wilson
the offense is? Arthur Smith. Sorry, I knew it was a very common last name. Yeah. Arthur Smith is the OC. He's the same guy who destroyed Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts' value because he doesn't run an offense that has any fantasy relevancy at all or wins a lot of games. And so in that respect, Pickens' value is most hurt by that. Fields and Russell get in trouble because they hold the ball too long. Like that's when they get in trouble. And then they need guys who can make contested catches. That's where Pickens excels at, is the contested catches downfield. So in some ways, I think he could be fine. The problem is it's going to be all Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, and maybe Pat Freiermuth once in a while.
Let's keep in mind, George Pickens put up a huge amount of points in 1 week last year. Yeah. And that can inflate numbers, and it shows what he's capable of. He's got huge upside, but at the same time, I don't trust him all that much. Now,
I don't trust the offense in Pittsburgh at all. I mean,
well,
there you go. Thanks.
T-Resident says, guys, I hate to say it, but I'm honestly avoiding all Steelers, and I can see why.
Saying. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't avoid Najee and Jaylen Warren as a third running back or flex guy just because they're going to run the ball so much, but it has to be in the flex at best position.
Yeah, Albert Marquin says, good afternoon. Good to see you here, Albert. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. We would love to hear it. All right.
You know what's interesting? We've been talking for 40 minutes. We haven't mentioned DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Rashee Rice, Amari Cooper, Devonta Smith, Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley,
Deebo Samuel.
Deebo, I think I have Deebo as a bust.
Interesting.
I do too. How about Jim Neighbors for the Giants, Casey? You love Jim
Neighbors. I have Malik Neighbors up high. I'm going against the Dan theory of you can't put rookies high. I think Malik Neighbors is just an alpha, and the Giants are going to, I mean, you saw what I sent you guys yesterday. Even with the beard, he's still a terrible quarterback. Daniel Jones is not a good quarterback for winning games for the Giants, but he could make Malik Neighbors fantasy relevant because they're going to be behind in almost every game. And who else is he going to throw the ball to?
Well, he's going to be fantasy relevant.
Right. And I think he could be, at least 80 receptions and get in the touchdown, get in the end zone a bunch of times. And if he does that, that's a top 30 wide receiver.
Casey,
I mean-
I love your pick with Jim Neighbors. I think, I love this kid. I loved him in college.
Surprise!
Surprise. My nose is big enough.
Oh, golly. But I agree with you, Casey. He's the number one receiver in New York for the Giants. And I think he's going to have 1,000
He's going to get
yards
peppered with
receiving,
targets.
1,000 yards receiving, maybe 8-9 touchdowns. I
And
think it's
he's
a
not
great
one
pick.
of those receivers that needs to get deep to make the big play. So it's
No.
going to be a lot of quick slants, dig routes, whatever that stuff is, to get him the ball and let him make people miss tackles.
Yeah, LSU receivers do really well, a la Jefferson. I mean, these guys are just beasts.
Jamar Chase, Jefferson, Odell. Yeah, there's
all
a
these
pretty good
guys.
track record there.
So this won't surprise you, but I have Marvin Harrison Jr. ranked 29th, and I have Malik Neighbors ranked 30th.
There you go.
That's ridiculous.
Well, if I'm going to rank Marvin Harrison Jr. 29th,
You
not
can't.
gonna
Well,
put Malik
I think
Neighbors above
Neighbors. Honestly, I debated putting
You
Neighbors
could.
above Harrison.
It's possible.
because at least Kyler Murray has Trey McBride.
Yeah. Now, listen, I do have some guys that are ranked ahead of those guys that in reality, I probably won't draft. For example,
Well, let's hear
I-
them.
well, I have T. Higgins 22, but I have him as a bust because he's never really done that much. He's become injury prone. He hasn't been that happy with his contract situation. There's just a lot of question marks. So
100%.
I would, I mean,
I don't
I'm
have him as a
ranking them
bust.
based on how they're going to finish in
Right. I don't have him a
numbers.
bust because I have him on the 6th tier. So to me, that's, if he has 3 or 4 big games, that's a 6th tier, right? So
There it is, the Bengals.
You mentioned T. Higgins. I got to protect my players. You guys are just knocking the Bengals, knocking them. We'll see how they knock the Patriots out on the first week. I can't wait. I think T. Higgins will impress us and have a good 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. How about that, Casey Scheinfeld?
there you go.
Quote me
That
on
would not be a bust. That would be
You could quote me on that.
that'd be a great investment then.
I think
there you go.
think he's going to end up with like 850 yards and 5 touchdowns. People are going to be really unhappy. But
Okay.
I could be wrong. In fact, I probably am. That's the way fantasy sports goes. Okay, can I get an honest opinion about Levis Ridley stack this season? I'm intrigued. I actually think that's a very underrated stack. And we've talked about
It's
Levis.
not a stack I would want in single quarterback leagues. Obviously, you don't want Levis to be your one. I think it's a great stack for best ball
Superflex.
leagues. I think it's a great stack for super flex leagues. Will Levis loves to chuck the ball down the field, and Calvin Ridley is going to be the guy who gets downfield to try to grab him, and he's good at the contested catch rate. He led the Jaguars in end zone targets last year, so he's a big red zone sort of wide receiver. I like it. I mean,
what I will say is even in one quarterback
but there's
leagues,
going to be dry weeks.
Yeah, if you're in one quarterback leagues, I wouldn't draft that to be your starting setup, but I could see them exploding together. And if that happens, then maybe
That's why it's
deal,
great for best
maybe you
ball.
deal your starter. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you guys, I know you don't like to talk about gambling, but I made a bet last season with Ridley over 6.5 touchdowns. And I made that early. I saw that and it was like, oh my, why is it only 6.5? And
that's
and
very
by,
low to me.
and by week 10, I won the bet. So I'm going to, I don't know what it is now, but I have to start making my, my predictions with player props. And
Where do you
pretty
guys
good at
have Ridley ranked?
I have Ridley in
it. 5th tier.
tier 5. I have him
in
right
five
around.
also.
I have him right around Devonta Smith, Amari Cooper, and Rashee Rice.
So you're down
He's
on
like-
Devontae Smith.
He's
because
like
that's lower
number
than I expected.
33. My thing is like number 33, 34 receiving wise. I still like him.
I have
but
him
I'm just
higher
worried
than
about-
that, but
I have him at
volume.
23. But meanwhile, Case, it sounds like you have Devontae Smith pretty low.
I have him in tier 5. Yeah, I just think. Look, I think
Well, I know.
AJ Brown is the dominant target there. AJ Brown is the end zone target there. I think Devonta Smith in PPR leagues he'll be decent because he's going to get you 6-7 yards, 6-7 receptions a game. But I don't think he's going to be end zone target for the short stuff now that Saquon Barkley is there to take some of that stuff.
I
I
mean,
mean, to
you could-
Alabama. Of course, we take him early. Ask my boy Atwater. What are you doing?
But you know
Wake
what?
up.
I'm
Devontae
higher on
Smith won the
Devontae.
Heisman.
I'm higher on Devontae Smith, and he's really put up
Atwater
some
when he
big
needed to
numbers
swear.
before.
Yeah,
But
look, skinny Batman. I'm a big fan, but I think when you have Saquon, you have AJ Brown, you have Dallas Goedert also there, and Jalen Hurts, who loves to run in from the 2 or 3 yard line. I don't think he gets as many end zone shots as
Okay.
you need to be in the higher tiers.
As I mentioned to you, it's a new offense. So that tush push isn't going to be pushing much this season compared
And
to other
did-
times. There's no Jason Kelsey. He's
We'll
retired.
see. We'll see when it's 3rd and 1 on the
it's a
1 yard
brand new
line.
offense. Brand new.
I don't know if this matters much for his fantasy value, but did you hear about Jahan Dotson being dealt to the Eagles?
I saw that.
Yep.
I did see that, which makes me.
For like nothing.
I did these rankings before I had Terry McLaurin. Before I knew that, I probably moved Terry McLaurin. up a little
McLaurin's.
I mean, they traded him for like a box of donuts, basically. I don't understand the trade.
3rd round
but
pick.
He must have not impressed people in preseason, so that's where he's gone.
I guess not, but I mean, they got
In
a
the same
3rd round pick. That's
division.
not nothing.
They've been
Yeah.
the same division.
Well, that shows that they're not too worried about him. All right, Chris Atwater says, "Who's the breakout wide receiver this year?" Maybe Wicks. What do you guys think?
I have Dontavian Wicks as one of my sleepers. I talked
Casey
about him
likes
as one of
him.
my favorite underrated players going into Tuesday's episode. I love him there. Everybody talks about Christian Watson and Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs. I think Dontavian Wicks might have the highest upside of all of them. And he developed good chemistry with Jordan Love last year. And if that carries over, he could certainly be that. So that's a good pick. I also like Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville, another rookie here. But you know me, like when we talk
Casey
baseball, I
loves
love all the
prospects all the time. He loves
but I
to
also,
dream.
and this will make Chris Atwater happy. I love Rashid Shaheed.
Oh,
I think
Me too.
I think he is one of those ones who could be the breakout wide receiver this year because the focus will be on Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill. But I think Rashid Shaheed, with his ability to miss tackles, his ability to kind of play in space, he could absolutely be a stud there.
Let me give you two, and these guys will be drafted late in the game. I love Keenan Allen in Chicago. New scenery, new place. They've been looking great in preseason. I mean, and I watched that HBO show, and Keenan Allen's like his main guy. I mean, so Keenan Allen in Chicago, they're going to surprise some people. Casey Scheinfeld. I know you're not a Bears guy.
I think a lot of people are picking them for a wild card spot, so I don't know how much they'll surprise.
They're going to
Dr.
surprise
Dan
in one
Ratner and I
direction or
are.
another.
And then another guy that I talked about on Tuesday, who's a rookie who had that 40 dash at 4.2, Dr. Dan Ratner speed. That's what I said that on Tuesday also. Just so you
Xavier
know.
Worthy.
Beautiful. It's the only time I'm
Xavier
fast.
Worthy, he is the real deal. And with Rice having, some problems off the field and Hollywood Brown being hurt, I think Xavier can really, really take advantage of that. And we'll see him. He'll get some catches.
Here's my only issue with Xavier Worthy. Andy Reid is notorious for not giving rookie wide receivers much of a chance.
Except Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had a great rookie year, and I'm right. And he's a speedster. And what is Worthy? He's a speedster. So let's take that little theory and throw it out the window. Let's wake up and notice, like, what are the receivers do they have? The other guy they had last year, making him a running back.
Okay.
The other guy who's
Tyreek Hill's first year, 61 catches, 593 yards.
What's wrong with that?
Well, you're making it sound like he was a stud. We're
How
talking
many touchdowns?
6. We're talking 4
There's the rookie.
catches a game for what? 50
Tyreek
yards?
Hill did that as a rookie.
Right. So I wouldn't go with that. Okay, so who steps up in Dotson's role? I'm going to say
Who?
Luke McCaffrey,
Luke.
the younger brother of CMC, who was a quarterback in college before converting to wide receiver, and he's been effective and sensational in each role. I think he could have a role in this offense. I don't think he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver there, but I think it gets him into the top 4 wide receivers and gives him a chance to make an impact.
So am I remembering this correctly? Did you guys watch Friday Night Lights? Wasn't there a player named Luke McCaffrey in that show?
I didn't watch Friday Night Lights.
Oh my God. That is the best show of all time.
It's been years. I mean, I have not watched it. I'm busy watching Love Island. That's what I'm busy doing. But
all right. Well, I think Luke McCaffrey stepping in for Dotson, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I was going to say as one of my big sleepers is Ladd McConkey. The Chargers just don't have much of anybody to throw to that's established. And meanwhile, I think their quarterback, I like him better than the two of you do. But
No, I like Justin
I almost
Herbert.
said
No,
Philip Rivers.
I think he'll.
I just think
I
the
think
plantar
he'll run-
fasciitis is an injury that lingers.
It can
It
be, but
does.
I'm just saying, Lad McConkey is so we have this
It's
question. Do you
kind
all
of like
think
a shin contusion in
He
baseball.
went to Georgia,
Ah.
right? Right. He went to Georgia,
He
and
did?
his dad played for the Giants, right, Case?
Phil McConkey, baby. He and Mark Bavaro.
it is Phil McConkey's kid. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, he's got the pedigree.
Look, I like Lad McConkey. I drafted him in the first round in a dynasty league this year at the end of the first round, but I don't know if this is going to be a great year for him for one reason alone.
Tell me.
Jim Harbaugh. He's a
That-
ground and pound.
that is a problem.
He's a ground and pound quarterback, a ground and pound coach. Josh Palmer is going to be the number one there. Quentin Johnston is crap. So I think it gives Lad
Horrible.
McConkey a lot of
Horrible.
opportunity.
We
but
talked about it.
I don't
before.
know if that offense can produce a stud wide receiver.
Okay, but in terms of the big time breakout, I'm calling Drake London to do it. I mean, Kirk Cousins.
That's a great pick. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins being there and he's got the talent. We already know it. I think we could end up with Drake London as a top 5 receiver next year. Now, is that going to happen? Who knows? But he's got all the makings of that. Who else would you guys put up there as possible breakout receiver?
Well, I mentioned 2 already. I'll give you a couple more. I love this guy, and I'll just tell you why. I think Dante Johnson of Carolina, who's with
Deontay,
Pittsburgh
yeah.
last year, somebody has to be the number 1 receiver, and I think he will be in Carolina.
Listen, sometimes in Carolina there is no number 1 receiver,
and I just think a change of scenery
Didn't
and a change
happen
of place,
today.
and
There wasn't one today. Sorry.
I
Keep going, Ross.
also have Zach Flowers of Baltimore.
Zay
Zay
Flowers.
Flowers.
Zay.
I mean, he was he was good, and then he got hurt. Then he wasn't the same when he came back. But I think Zay Flowers will put up some numbers up in Baltimore, especially with their running game, taking a lot of the spotlight. But when they throw the ball, Flowers looked great beginning of the season. Then he died down when he got hurt. So I think these 2 guys, are guys that are really going to shine this year and really put up good numbers. I'm talking about over 1,000 yards and between 10 and 12 touchdowns. I think those kind of numbers are possible with both those guys.
All right, we're going to do a quick run through of some comments we fell behind on. MHJ needs to be higher if he's responding to my ranking. I
Right.
totally
Ross and I
understand
both have him in the top 10.
So yeah, I would say he's lower than-
Dan's been smoking too much of that funny stuff, so he's not a big.
We'll see.
Harrison
This will
guy,
be
but,
a topic of conversation. Okay, Devontae Smith in tier 5, face palm. So I'm assuming he thinks he should be higher, which I agree with also. Let's see. What have we missed?
I mean, do you remember last season in baseball when Casey said the bust is going to be De La Cruz, and now he stole his 60th base, and he's going to break all these records. But Casey admitted he made the mistake, and
I will always admit when I make a mistake.
We're gonna hold.
And by
you
the
to
way, I
this
didn't
about
say he was
Harrison Jr.
going to be a bust. I said he had the highest
said he
potential to be.
could
a
Okay,
bust.
Greg, can you run the tape of him saying he's a bust, please? Thank you.
Say it all you like.
Don't worry.
All right. T. Resner says I like Bears vibe right now. For real,
I do too. I watched that show. I
yeah.
love their coach. I love everything about him. I
love
the
love
Bears.
to see teams turning it around. Chris Howard says love
And they
Shaheed.
have,
but can't-
and
Go ahead.
Dan, they have your favorite player. They have Jalen Smith. What's Jalen Swift? What's his first name?
DeAndre Swift.
Oh my
DeAndre
God!
Swift.
Trigger
They
warning.
have him on the Bears. Yeah, I know. There's the trig. They have Swift as their running back this year, so maybe
was
we'll see you
was
pick
it
them.
last year or 2 years ago that I drafted Swift and was like
2 years
year.
ago.
And by the way, I did not draft him. I never wanted to do that. It auto drafted.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that was a trigger for a long time. Okay, keep going.
Chris Atwater says love Shaheed, but can't seem to pry him out from another owner via trade. Let's see. Chargers are going to love Kamani Vidal with Harbaugh. Yay, Troy. It's going to be a lot of running in that offense. That's a great pick. And this is another reason why I think I think this is another reason why you prioritize wide receivers over running backs. I mean, you can get a guy like that late, and I'm not saying he is going to hit, but he could. Go ahead, Case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love Vidal as a late round flyer. I don't think he's anybody you can bank on.
No, I agree. But he's a great late
Dobbins,
round
who's
flyer.
not going to stay healthy and doesn't, and Gus the Bus, who quietly always produces
and basically
he's-
does stay healthy a lot of the time.
and he is the exact prototype of what Harbaugh wants in a running back, somebody who's just willing to go straight between the tackles, put his pads low, and try to get him 4 to 5 yards at a time.
I would love to see Dobbins finally get through a season, but man,
Yeah.
he goes down early and it sucks. He says, I know I don't understand why everyone is so down on Vidal, but maybe it's what Casey was saying, that it's a crowded backfield. And Gus Edwards,
and they
does
still have
actually
Isaiah
seem to
Spiller,
help.
the 2nd or 3rd year back out of Texas Tech or A&M, one of those two. He's also
A&M,
very good.
and they also have the guy from the Ravens, the guy who was the number
That's
one.
Gus the Bus.
Gus the
No,
Bus.
they have the other one too, Casey. They have
J.K.
the,
Dobbins. We talked about them both.
Oh, okay.
Is there another one?
No, J.K.
Jamal
Dobbins.
Lewis.
Jamal Ray Rice.
Now, Chris Atwater, this is talk about bold. Vidal equals
Wow.
rookie of the year.
If
Could happen.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So last year you would have been happy with Swift. LOL. It's very possible, but when I auto draft,
No, it's not that he doesn't like Jamal.
DeAndre
Now I'm
Swift.
saying the wrong name. DeAndre Swift.
Jamal Lewis.
It's he got accidentally auto drafted him when he was trying to draft Derrick Henry
I was trying to draft Derrick Henry, and
and
instead,
got auto drafted DeAndre Swift in like the 3rd round. So
yeah, and then I traded him, and I got it all set up. But this year I will do everything I can to not have it draft me DeAndre Swift accidentally. And Ross, it's still a league with no set tight end, right?
I can't remember. That's a great question.
Listen. This is something you need to know. Going
You're
into all your drafts.
co-commissioner
Know
now.
your
So
settings.
I know your settings. The draft's not till next week, so I got a little time.
I'm not going to change the roster.
And I have a great co-commissioner now. He's unbelievable. This guy, he's one of the best in the business.
Sir.
So I don't have to worry about much stuff anymore like I used to. But we can talk if you want to change something. Just run it by me. I'm all ears. I love.
Well,
change.
I'm fine not doing it. But last year, the DeAndre Swift moment for me was when I drafted Mark Andrews, being like, "Yes, I got the best tight end," and then it was like, we don't even have a tight end spot. He's just basically a flex. That was not a happy moment for you. You got to know your league settings. Okay, Chris Howard says, obviously a homer pick, and watching him play over the years has been fun. 2nd most yards by a running back in the FBS last year. Who's he referring to, guys?
Vidal. Troy.
Okay.
Fidel
Yeah.
Castro.
Well, Chris loves those college players that he follows. So I hope it works out. Who else do we need to mention? There were a couple guys we didn't mention. I just want to get a couple of rankings. Where do you have DJ Moore?
I have DJ Moore right after Debo. I have he and DK Metcalf next to each other with George Pickens.
There's this whole middle ground where there's a lot of.
I love Rome.
Yeah,
I love
I
Rome
mean-
in Chicago too. I mean,
I think Rome is going to be Jackson Smith and the Jigba this year. If you
When in
remember,
Rome.
because they had Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, he kind of got forgotten. I like JSN as a sleeper this year as a post hype because they got rid of Pete Carroll and his run first idea, and they're going to be a little more diverse. I like DJ Moore.
I hate what happened to Jordan Addison, with McCarthy going down, because, I was excited about him, but if you can't get excited about Justin Jefferson, it's harder to get excited about Jordan Addison.
Right.
I'm worried about the whole passing. Casey, where do you have? I'm curious where you like Scary Terry McLaurin. Where do you have him?
I have him with Michael Pittman.
Daniels.
I have him
Okay.
with Michael Pittman and Calvin Ridley. Because the reason I like him is because he's going to play that DeAndre Hopkins role in Cliff Kingsbury's offense because he's the new OC in Washington. And if you remember what he did with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins together, it was pretty special. Jaden Daniels is another Kyler Murray type. And so I think McLaurin, especially with Dotson being gone, is going to be a target monster. And he could that might bump him above into that Devonta Smith role, range for me.
Now
All
I'm
right.
taking Jalen Daniels as rookie of the
Daniels.
year. That's my pick.
I think he's going to be really good.
He's my
Chris
pick
Atwater,
rookie
good to
of the
see you. Thanks for joining us. We have a question coming in from Ethan. Thoughts on Puka Nakua's production this year? We talked about him earlier in the episode, but I think we're all huge on him. The real question is Cooper Kupp going to eat into?
And
Well,
he is. It's just a question of how much. Can you have
1,200
two
yards,
they can-
14 touchdowns?
Fortunately, Sean McVay throws the ball enough that you can have two 1,200-yard receivers in the same.
Yep.
I mean,
room.
I am not worried about having Nakua on my team at all.
It's just a question of whether he stays healthy because he's already been banged up.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
I love that kid. I love him. I love watching him. He's like a pinball machine. He just runs and pins and hits people and bounces off. He's great. Love him.
All right. T. Resner says, I'm high on DJ Moore this season. I think a lot of people are. And the Bears are picking up steam in the hype. JD over MHJ, you really think? Ross, you were the one who said
Who's
rookie of the year.
JD? Tell me. Oh,
Jaden
Daniel
Daniels.
Daniels over.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Marvin Harrison.
I-
Yeah,
yeah,
quarterback always has the edge.
Yeah, I mean, this kid. I don't know if you watched him at LSU last year. He won the Heisman, and he was unbelievable. I mean, this guy could run. He could pass. He first started his career at this unbelievable school in Arizona. Casey, remind me where he started his career. I forgot.
Arizona Wildcats.
No,
No, I think
Arizona
it was
State.
Texas Tech.
No, it was Arizona State.
It was University of Phoenix.
He was recruited by Herm Edwards, who ruined his career, and then he transferred to LSU, won a Heisman. This kid's for real. He looked great in preseason.
Win the game.
In preseason, he looks great. I mean, he's been throwing
Arizona
bombs.
always makes me think they are who we thought they are. They were who
But
we
he's
thought
been
they
playing
were.
great. I like Daniel Daniels a lot this year. I think he'll surprise a lot of people.
All right, before we wrap up, we're going to wrap up here, guys, but I want you to name one sleeper, one bust, one value pick that we just haven't talked about yet. Case, we'll start with you. I don't mean to put you on the spot. You can always just defer.
Sleeper is Keon Coleman in
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
That was mine. Well, I'll go with Khalil Shakir then.
Value pick is Dontavian Wicks in Green Bay. We talked about him already. And my bust, I have 4 potential. I have Jefferson as one of the potential busts because of the quarterback situation, but I have Deebo Samuel as a bust.
All right,
especially if Ayuk stays in San Francisco.
Ross, what about you?
My bust, DK Metcalf. I just have no faith in Seattle at all this year. Smith is a year older. Geno Smith. I don't.
Sam Howell, baby.
I love Sam Howell, North Carolina guy. So DK Metcalf as my sleeper pick. I'll take Diggs for Houston. I think no one's talking about him. Everybody talks about Nico Collins or Tank Dell. Diggs, I think, will have a big year this year. They're paying him big money. I see him producing. I see him doing well in Houston with that quarterback, CJ Stroud. I love him this year, and I think he'll have a big year. And then what's the other one? Oh, my sleeper pick. We talked about sleepers, but let me just say Xavier Worthy again. I mean, I believe in this kid, and I think he's perfect for that offense in Kansas City. I know the whole thing about rookies and the coach in Kansas City. I get it, but I just feel this kid's an exception, that he'll have a big year, and I wish him the best this year because I'm taking him in a lot of leagues. So there you go.
All right, I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir as one of my sleepers. I think because the Bills' offense is wide open for a lot of targets, and so Keon Coleman I also had down there. My main bust I feel like is Garrett Wilson. I'm just not big.
Yeah,
I'm not big into the Jets, and we don't know how healthy Aaron Rodgers is going to be. And meanwhile, he just hasn't produced that well. We have value picks throughout the draft, but I can't help but say Nico Collins as a value pick, even though he's way up there, because I think he is going to explode. I think he's going to be.
Well, he exploded last year, but you think it's going to be continued trajectory?
I think it's for real. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick next year.
Think about Nico Collins is this: they throw him the deep ball beginning of the game, like in the first quarter, they'll throw him a bomb, and he'll catch it and be like over 100 yards in the first quarter. That's what Nico Collins does. And he's
I will also say, I mean, Calvin Ridley also is a great value pick. We talked about him before, but I think he's a great value pick for later in the draft. Meanwhile, we've got another Bears fan, Daniel Walsh. Good to see you here. T. Resident says, yes, JJ bust, good call, bro. And he says 0% JJ this year and 19% Amon-Ra. So, we've covered a lot of ground here, guys. And of course, drafts are coming up. Obviously, you got to pick who you think. But we laid out our rankings. We covered a lot of ground and hopefully gave you some good information. If you haven't already, click subscribe, guys. It's great to have more subscribers so you can know when we're talking again. Next week, we're on for running backs.
Okay. Running backs.
Playoffs. Yes, it's going to be running backs will be next Thursday. That's August 29th, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And we'll keep right on rolling after that. Then our draft is actually going to be the same day. Yeah,
let me just give my number one running back, Casey. I'll say it. It's McCaffrey for San Francisco.
Good choice. You really went out on a limb.
Look at this. Mad Max contributing some money to our station. We appreciate that. And thank you for the tip. Okay. I'm keeping C-Mac at 108 and Kyron in round 17.
Okay.
Marv, London, and Devontae are best available round 2. Would you swap picks with 101 to keep Warren round 12, then draft C-Mac? Waddle, Debo, Ayuk, DJ, and Devontae are best available. Whew! That's a lot of information. All right, Ross, what do you think?
Yes, Warren to me means nothing. There's a million running backs who are better than him that are, I'm sure, not drafted or rookies this year that you can get. So yes, Warren to me, I would CMC. I'm worried about. We talked about at KC about his injury prone, and
Yeah.
I'm
So
I'm worried
are
about
you
that.
saying you would then swap out to 101 and keep Warren around 12, or you do it the other way? If I'm understanding the question correctly,
I would do it the other way. If that makes sense.
you would keep CMAC at 108 and not mess
Yes.
with Warren. I would do the
And-
same. Case, what about
Yes.
you?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I
Warren
just
to me is worthless.
I think stay away from the Steelers. It just doesn't seem
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't seem the best.
Oh,
yeah, there's no. The only Steeler I like is T.J. Watt in defense. If there's a league that sacks matter, take T.J. Watt.
Meanwhile, if I'm understanding the question correctly, it looks like Waddle, Debo, Ayuk, DJ, and Devontae are the best available at 1-1. So I wouldn't do that. If
Yeah.
I'm understanding that
and
correctly.
he's getting Kyron in
I
round
also
17.
Yeah, no, you definitely stay with that. But I think he was always going to. But I would take London in round 2, based on what you're putting.
Yep.
down.
Yep.
I think that would be a great pick. Okay, T. Resner says playoffs. Were you just trying to win a game, and you're talking about playoffs? Playoffs. It also
He's
makes
doing
me think of
another
Allen
Arizona.
Iverson's
Arizona
practice.
provides the best sound bites.
It's hilarious.
If only
All right.
Allen Iverson was playing for the Phoenix Suns when he did practice, man.
Practice. We talking about practice? Yeah. All right, guys. It has been a pleasure. Case, Ross, thanks for joining us here. We'll be back same time next week to do running backs. It's also our live draft later that night, which will be at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, 4:15 p.m. Pacific. Come watch me pick DeAndre Swift accidentally. It's going to be a
And
party.
watch the face. Yep, it's gonna be great. I can't wait.
Well, Casey and I were both on the same thing. Oh, we have how much stock in the CD to Casey rumor? I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah.
No,
I don't think
they have
Jerry
the
Jones would
cap.
ever let that happen.
They don't have the cap.
Yeah. All right.
Jerry Jones is not going to get rid of him. CD.
And
Trust
he's not
me.
going to
Never
get
gonna
into
let
a
that happen.
defending Super Bowl team.
It
All right.
just-
T. Resner says, thanks a lot, guys. Thank you. It's a pleasure,
Yeah.
guys. Ross, finish up on what you were saying there. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just saying Jerry Jones will never get. CD Lamb's going to be a Cowboy for life, or he's going to sign a huge deal. We're
Yep.
talking about big money. KC Scheinfeld money. That's the kind of money we're talking about.
Wow. I can't even
All right,
fathom
guys, we're wrapping up. But Mad Max, thanks again for the tip. We hope we answered your question. Please do put follow up in the comments. We'll follow up with you as needed. Okay, guys, it's a pleasure. I will see you guys next week.